How about
Is
now?
it is it working now?
Oh, yes, it is working right now. Sweet. So, hello again to the wonderful Mangoes.
Hello there.
Right. So, I was asking you who you are and what do you do?
Well, I mean, I already went through this, but I'm 21 years old. I live in Sweden, and I'm currently a student studying to be a system tester. And before that, I was studying a lot of music-related stuff, learning instruments and music production, and those kind of things.
Just out of curiosity, what instruments do you play?
Well, I play a little bit of everything. I play drums, I play guitar, piano. I also played a little bit of saxophone, but that was when I was quite young, so I don't really remember how to do that.
It's kind of impressive. Well, to me at least.
Yeah, yeah.
So, when did you start making music? And if you got any, who were you influenced by?
Well, I initially started playing around with music software around like 2007, 2008, sometime then. But it wasn't until around 2010 or 2011 that I started actually producing music. And I'd say that my biggest influence were my fellow music making friends, because I had a lot of friends that were like making original music and all that stuff, and I thought that was really cool. So I wanted to try doing that as well. And I ended up on a internet music collective label, whatever, and I released a couple of albums and stuff. And well, here I am now.
It's amazing having your own friends as bigger influences.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So, what's your own kind of music like? What are your tastes like?
Uh, Tastes in music, or
Yeah, right.
well, I mean, I kind of enjoy all kinds of music, and I know that that's a pretty common answer, but I can't really think of anything that would describe my taste better. I can just appreciate pretty much any kind of musical work, regardless of genre or stuff like that.
It's a nice attitude towards music. I mean, it also shows in your own work that uh like you're not really in one genre only.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And what about video games? What kind of video games do you play in your free time and do they actually influence your work at all?
Well, I have more or less the same answer there. I enjoy a pretty wide variety of games, I would say. I mostly play indie games these days because I think that those kind of games are really interesting because you can have really, niche subjects or whatever, and that generally makes for more interesting games than, those typical AAA titles. Um, so, I don't really enjoy those bigger releases. Overwatch is perhaps the one exception. That's a game I'm completely sold on, but I mostly play just indie games and, stuff like that.
Could you narrow it down to a couple of favorites or are there too many that you love?
Couple of well, I mean, I usually just I usually just check out whatever is popular at the time, I guess. I mean, I games like Undertale, whatever people whatever gets a lot of hype around the internet, I usually get on that and play it, and that's the kind of games I end up enjoying. So that's what I play.
That's cool. Um, let's move towards a new topic, your work. About your projects, how do you usually work? Do things happen spontaneously? Or is everything very well structured? Or is it something in between?
Honestly, I'd say that most of the stuff I make is pretty spontaneous, because if I tell myself to like sit down and work and produce something, it can take days or perhaps even weeks before, said project is finished. But if I have a good idea, I can get that same amount of work done in perhaps an afternoon or something if I'm motivated enough. And
Hmm.
that was a bit of an issue when it comes to making music for games, specifically for Pocket Mirror, since it basically required me to be readily available to compose and or produce music on command. And sometimes it would work out well, but other times I would need a bit more time to finish something. And I mean, that's probably the biggest challenge about creative work in general, because your ability to manage those creative blocks could be the difference between a project going well and a project going miserably. So hopefully I'll get better at that with experience.
Yeah, I can see how forcing yourself to produce isn't the most effective way sometimes, and that's a big struggle when producing music for games, huh?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So let's talk about your music once more. What hardware and software do you work with when producing?
I'm more of a software kind of person, so pretty much everything in my current setup relies on software. My audio workstation that I use is FL Studio, and I know that that gets a lot of, bad reputation as being, bad software or whatever, but as long as you use whatever tool you use to create something that works, that's all fine in my opinion. And I also use a lot of different software instruments, sampled violins, orchestral instruments, whatever. And for that, I primarily use Contact 5, and pretty much all of the music that I made for Pocket Mirror uses default Contact 5 instruments. So that's what I use.
Sweet, so we got some technical backgrounds here.
Yeah.
When composing the Pocket Mirror UST, you did some arranging and some composing, right?
hmm
Could you explain to the audience what the difference between the two is?
Well, composing is, I would say, basically the songwriting process, where you create the melody of the song, the chord progression, and in some cases also the instrumentation of. And the end result of that is usually just information, notes either stored digitally in perhaps MIDI format or as sheet music. And arranging is simply taking that composition that you've made and, well, arranging it with actual instruments, either software instruments or real life instruments. And arranging also usually means creating new musical elements that are not already in the composition, like harmonies, percussion tracks, and so on. And an example of this would be the track Kleine Beere. I don't know if I'm
Kleine
pronouncing that
Beere
right.
would be the German
Kleine... Yeah,
pronunciation.
yeah, yeah.
It's
I
whatever.
don't know exactly how to pronounce that, but from the Pocket Mirror soundtrack, and which I arranged. And to create that track, it's actually a pretty funny story. Kira would literally send me sound files of him humming the main melody to the song, and then I used that to arrange a full version of the song. So in that case, the only information I had was the main melody, and everything else was up to my interpretation. For the other tracks in the soundtrack that I arranged, I was usually given a composition from another person in the sound team, which I then arranged into what you hear in the game.